forums for state court judges running in Division A in DeKalb County. My name is Steve Parker. I'm chair of the Special Events Committee for DeKalb Dems, and we are streaming tonight on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We welcome you to this second in our series of forums for county positions. DeKalb Dems is volunteer-based, and we ask for your support because it enables us to get out the vote. You can help make a difference when you join DeKalb Dems as a member and to attend our Blue Ballot fundraising event on June 22nd, when we honor Senator Gloria Butler and CEO Michael Thurman. We produce these as a volunteer organization, and we are glad to have you here tonight. It's my privilege to honor and introduce Brandy Weish, Chair of DeKalb Dems. Brandy?
Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you to everyone that is here with us this evening. I want to start off by saying a huge thank you to Steve, the leader of our forums, and all of the folks who are helping to put this on this evening, our moderator, all the folks behind the scenes, our tech crew, our writers. We could not do this work without each and every one of you. For those that are new to our forums, I just want to share thank you again for being here, and also that these forums are of great importance here in DeKalb. We can all focus on the big federal elections that are happening, even sometimes in other years statewide, but it is really what happens here in DeKalb that is super important to the everyday lives of each of us as DeKalb residents. So the candidates that you are going to meet this evening have a profound impact on the lives of DeKalb residents, and we are so excited to have them here with us this evening. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our moderator. I'm very excited to introduce our moderator. Cindy Wilski is currently our treasurer here at DeKalb Dems, but also Cindy has a background. She is a financial professional with 30 years of experience in Fortune 500 companies, both in Atlanta and Chicago. She has been a resident of DeKalb County since 2012 and has volunteered for a number of years with the Human Rights Campaign, including 6 years on their National Board of Governors, and was a founding board member for the Kids and organizer of the inaugural toy party for that organization as well. Cindy has always followed politics, but became very active in 2020, dropping literature and driving voters to the polls. She joined DeKalb Dems and started to volunteer to help with budget and finance in 2021. Cindy serves as I shared, as the current treasurer for DeKalb Dems, and when not managing finances for her job or for DeKalb Dems, Cindy enjoys pickleball, traveling, and spending time with her wife and college-aged daughter. So Cindy, thank you so much for being here and being our moderator this evening. I am going to pass it over to you to get us started.
Great, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. So DeKalb County has 7 honorable judges in Division A, including the Honorable Chief Judge, Wayne M. Purdom, who is retiring. So there are 3 candidates running to replace him in Division A3. And then in Division A6, the incumbent Honorable Judge Anna Maria Martinez will be challenged by 1 candidate. All candidates have accepted our invitation to participate in our forum this evening. So state court judges are elected to 4 terms in nonpartisan countywide elections. Candidates must be at least 25 years old, have been admitted to practice law for at least 7 years, and have lived in the state for at least 3 years. Division A handles misdemeanors, civil matters, and cases in these courts include DUIs, professional malpractice, premises liability, and automobile collisions. Judicial candidates are limited to talk only about who they are and their background. They cannot comment on specific cases or how they might rule. So as a reminder, each candidate has 90 seconds to make an opening statement. Each candidate will have 60 seconds to answer all questions. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to make a closing statement, And this forum is not a debate. It is, we're only focusing on the issues and policies, so please do not call out other candidates by name. And with that, we will get started with our opening statements. So I wanted to start with the candidates from Division A3. They are Mecca Anderson, Yolanda Mack, and Deanne McGee. Please make an opening statement to tell the audience why you are uniquely qualified for this position. Ms. Anderson, 90 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Mecca Anderson. My offer to serve you comes from a deep sense of duty to my community, a personal passion for using the law to solve problems and social ills. I began my career at the Supreme Court of Georgia. I practiced civil law for most of my career. I have been honored as a Georgia super lawyer. I have my own legal services business, and I serve as a prosecutor on criminal misdemeanor cases. In short, I have the exact experience required to serve on the state court bench. I'm a proud resident of East Atlanta. I have one daughter, Layla. She turns 28 years old tomorrow. I'm engaged to be married this year, and I have one dog. Her name is MJ. When I'm not working, I'm usually serving. A list of the organizations I serve can be found online at www.mecca4judge.com. I'm asking for your support because I am professionally prepared for this role, and I have a personal record of collegiality, compassion, decisiveness, and above all, a commitment to justice. I have the experience and the temperament that you can trust. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. Mack, 90 seconds.
Good evening. My name is Yolanda Mack, and I'm your candidate for DeKalb County State Court Judge Division 3. Thank you again, the DeKalb Dems, for hosting this forum. Although the judges are nonpartisan, I have the honor of being endorsed by the chair of the Democratic Caucus, Representative Billy Mitchell, Sheriff Melody Maddox, Ambassador Andrew Young, Commissioner Long Spears, and a host of other Democratic leaders. My career is that of a public servant. I started my career as a public defender, and I'm currently a prosecutor. I'm a deputy of the Sexual Assault Unit in the Fulton County DA's office. And prior to that, I was the deputy of the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Unit in the DeKalb DA's office. While prosecuting, I received twice Attorney of the Year while prosecuting crimes against women and children and vehicular homicide cases and high-profile cases. Although none of us have judicial experience, I have supervisory experience maintaining a calendar, making decisions on how to move forward with cases, and managing a staff, which are 3 things judges are required to do. I look forward to this forum this evening. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. McGee?
Good evening. Thank you, DeKalb Dems, for hosting this important and impactful forum. I am Deanne McGee, a daughter of DeKalb with a legacy of service. And that legacy is woven throughout my life. It started with my grandmother, the church, and growing up in South DeKalb. I grew up in Beulah Baptist Church, where I learned at an early age the importance of serving beyond the church walls, because unto whom much is given, much is required. I have been practicing law for 24 years. I have fought for victims of crime in DeKalb and represented the accused. I currently serve as a senior prosecutor in your DeKalb County District Attorney's Office, but I've also served our county as a criminal defense attorney. I understand that judges must know the law, but more importantly, they must exercise their discretion with wisdom and compassion. So while I will hold criminals accountable for their crimes, I will also advocate for accountability courts and other programs that promote rehabilitation so that we can get to the heart of the issue of those who commit crimes. And I will do my part to help close the revolving door to the criminal justice system. I am a graduate of the great Redan High School, the mother of 2 daughters of DeKalb, and married for 23 years to a God-fearing Morehouse man. I am Deanna McGee, a daughter of DeKalb with a legacy of service, and I want to be your next DeKalb County State Court Judge. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, now turning to the 2 candidates running for Division A6. They are the incumbent, the Honorable Judge Anna Maria Martinez, and Tishon Yvonne Jackson. Please use your 90 seconds to tell us why you are uniquely qualified for this position. Your Honor.
Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I am the judge in Division 6. I was inspired by my grandfather to become a lawyer. He instilled in me a love for the law and the importance of access to justice. I am a proud graduate of the University of Georgia and the Georgia State University College of Law. I first worked as a litigator at Owen Gleaton, Egan Jones and Sweeney, and in 2013, I joined the DeKalb State Court and my current division as a staff attorney for the Honorable Dax E. Lopez. I worked for him for 8.5 years and was appointed as a judge in this division 2.5 years ago, making me the first and only Latina trial court judge in the history of Georgia. I am incredibly honored to be endorsed by former Governor Roy Barnes, by former Senator and gubernatorial candidate Jason Carter, by the Clerk of Superior Court, Deborah DeBerry, by Commissioner Michelle Long Spears, and the former First Lady of DeKalb, Philippa Ellis. Many of them lawyers and court leaders and people that know what it takes to be a successful judge in DeKalb. I hope that by the end of tonight, after you've learned about my experience and my commitments to this county, I will count with your support as well. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. Ms. Jackson, 90 seconds.
Members of the DeKalb Dems, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak before you this evening. My name is Tyshawn Jackson. I am a senior assistant district attorney who has been given the opportunity to create, implement policy and procedure, and run my own unit called the Firearm Violence Prevention Unit in the DeKalb DA's office. This unit is like no other and doesn't exist anywhere else in the state of Georgia. But I will be remiss if I did not tell you that I actually got my start into law, not when I became a prosecutor or when I went to law school. I was introduced to the legal system at the age of 9 years old through a tragedy. On December 16, 1992, I came home from school and I discovered that my mother's life had been taken by gun violence at the hands of her domestic partner. That was my introduction to law. I was bombarded by police officers, detectives, prosecutors, and ultimately stood before a judge. That horrific tragedy, however, lit a flame in me and inspired me to serve as a prosecutor and now as a judge. I am running to be the next state court judge to serve my community that raised me and provided me with the necessary resources to have a regular childhood as much as possible. I attended Ronald E. McNair Senior High School, and I'm proud to continue to live in the South DeKalb community. I am indebted to DeKalb County and want to repay them by dedicating my life as a servant on the judiciary. I am endorsed by great leaders as well. I'm endorsed by Billy Mitchell, State Representative, State Senator Emmanuel Jones, State Senator Tanya Anderson, and also great community leaders such as Dr. Thomas Coleman. I will love you all support and on May 21st, 2024. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, now turning to questions. I'll read the question and then I'm going to change the order just a bit. So the first question is, what qualifies you to be a judge beyond a law degree, and why should I vote for you? We'll start with Ms. Mack.
Thank you for the question. Well, the first thing I would say, what qualifies me is experience on all sides of the law. I started my career as a public defender, and now I'm a prosecutor. And for the last 8 years as a prosecutor, I've been a supervisor, maintaining calendars, managing and making decisions on how to move forward. I have the most trial experience of all the candidates. I've handled thousands of cases and tried over 100 cases. While trying those cases, I've been recognized twice as Attorney of the Year. And while I was a deputy of the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Unit in DeKalb County, my unit was Unit of the Year. More importantly, I'm running to be a state court judge in DeKalb, which means I'm from DeKalb and for DeKalb. I grew up right here in DeKalb County, a graduate of Avondale High School, and I have supports from all sides of the community. Judges should understand the community they are serving. They should be from the community, of the community, and for the community. I'm deeply involved in the community and will continue to do so as a state court judge. The community should have access to the judges that they serve.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGee?
Thank you. I have the professional and life experience to serve as your state court judge. I have been practicing law for 24 years. I have been both a prosecutor and a defense attorney in the state and superior courts of DeKalb County. I have also practiced law in other jurisdictions. I have owned and managed my own law practice, McGee Law, specializing in criminal defense, personal injury, and family law, representing residents of DeKalb County. So I have both criminal and civil experience. I have practiced in all 11 divisions of the State Court of DeKalb County and served with distinction as the Deputy Chief Prosecutor of the Special Victims Unit for 4 years in the state court. But more importantly, I am ready to do the work as your judge because I have already done the work in the community. I have a demonstrated commitment to serving DeKalb County that started long before I decided to run for office. I have used my skill set in and outside the courtroom to better my community. When I am elected, I'll be a judge from the community who understands the diversity and dynamics of our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Judge Martinez?
I have been a judge for 2.5 years now. To be appointed to this position, I had to interview with many people, and I'll share with you what I shared with them. I have worked in the DeKalb courts and in my division for a long time, over 10 years, and I understand this division from all angles. As a litigator, as a judge, as a staff attorney, I've done the work and I understand the challenges, and this is reflected in the support that I have from attorneys from all sides and in all capacities. We've been doing the work, like I said, for 2.5 years now, and I am very proud of the work that we've been doing.
And thank you. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Jackson.
Can you just repeat the question just for clarity?
Sure. What qualifies you to be a judge beyond a law degree, and why should I vote for you?
Just want to make sure I got it right. Thank you. So I want to speak to you all in reference to my community engagement and service. I have a track record for active involvement in my community and demonstrated public service. As a state court judge, I will serve at the pleasure of the people, and it is important to understand the people that we serve. It's also important for judges to recognize that we service all DeKalb. So judges should know where Farrington Road is, as well as Tilly Mill Road. And the only way to do that is by being involved in the community. I am a member of Junior League of DeKalb County, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the proud mock trial coach for the reigning champions right now, Decatur High School, a mentor to sister mentoring program, and I worship at House of Hope Atlanta, where I serve on a women's ministry. This is the community that raised me and made me who I am. I lost my mother to gun violence at the hands of her domestic partner, and it was my community that rallied behind me to provide me the mother figures that I needed as a child. I believe in giving back and contributing to the well-being of my community that raised me. As a judge, I will continue this tradition and this level of service to strive and make a positive impact on the lives that we serve in the jurisdiction. I also...
Thank you for your time. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Anderson.
We are vying for not just any judicial position, but for the state court of DeKalb. I highlight that because the state court handles 2 types of cases, as you mentioned in the opening: civil cases and criminal misdemeanor cases. I am the only candidate who has any civil experience running for Division A3, full stop. The bulk of my career has been spent representing individuals and businesses on civil matters. And for the past few years, I have prosecuted criminal misdemeanor cases. I can safely say then that I am the only candidate completely qualified exactly for the work that comes before this particular bench. As everyone knows, being qualified means having the necessary knowledge and experience required to perform a role specifically. And so that is why, by definition, I am the only qualified candidate. The second reason you should vote for me is temperament. I will be fair, impartial, and collegial. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Anderson. Turning to the next question, we'll start with Ms. McGee. Question number 2 is, can you explain your judicial philosophy in plain English?
Sure. My judicial philosophy is very similar to my philosophy as a lawyer. Work hard, do the right thing, treat everyone with dignity and respect. Be prompt, efficient, patient, and fair. My role is to interpret the law and apply the law to the facts in the case in a fair and impartial manner, always seeking the truth. My philosophy also includes managing the business of the court. Very similar to how I manage my law practice, I will retain competent staff who will also operate with dignity and respect and understand that serving the public with excellence is of greatest importance. Thank you.
Excellent. Judge Martinez.
My philosophy is to follow the law. Is to look at cases in a fair and impartial way. Is to treat everyone that comes before me with respect, and to the extent that it's appropriate and that I am able to make sure that people understand what is going on in their cases and the process they're going through. My philosophy is to have court staff that is knowledgeable and that also treat everyone with respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Can you please explain your judicial philosophy in plain English?
So I am guided by the strict following of the Constitution and statutes. I believe that I will focus on interpreting the law, emphasizing the importance of plain language of the law and the original intent of the drafters. Furthermore, I believe in fostering transparency and accessibility to the judicial process. Judges to communicate effectively with litigants, legal professionals, and the public, which ultimately promotes understanding and trust in the legal system. My courtroom will be a forum for peaceful resolution of conflict, as judges will play a pivotal role in maintaining decorum, respect, and rule of law. And when we speak of respect, it's very important. When in my courtroom, you will be respected, all litigants, all community members, and everyone. And respect means showing up on time, being respectful of people's time and people's cases. And that will be who I will be. That's my judicial philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Anderson?
My judicial philosophy can be broken down into 3 segments. First, I believe that judges are responsible for upholding and maintaining the public's faith in the justice system as much as possible. Second, I believe that we have to follow the law, period. Third, I believe that a judge must have the proper temperament and organization to actually run a courtroom well. I believe that we have to be so unbiased, so respectful, so fair as to encourage people to once again have faith in our justice system and to believe that they can get a just outcome in my courtroom. Second, following the law, there's no exception for that. Third, I think it's my experience managing trial teams, managing my business, that means that I will have the experience and be able to manage the staff in the courtroom.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, Ms. Mack.
Yes, my judicial philosophy is simple, just to be fair and treat everyone with respect that comes inside of my courtroom. I believe in fairness and that everyone who comes inside of the courtroom should feel like that they're hearing. I feel like everyone who comes into your courtroom, regardless of what happens with their case, feel like they've been treated fairly. The interesting thing about me is that being a prosecutor, one of the biggest compliments that I have received is from the defense bar. The support that I've received from the defense bar and the compliment that I've received is that every time they've dealt with me, I've been fair with them. I think as a judge, I think the best measure of how fair a judge would be is how fair they've been in their career. I would never want to minimize anyone's access to the justice system by being unfair. That's my judicial philosophy.
Thank you very much. For question 3, we will start with Judge Martinez. The question is, how will you balance being an independent judge and an elected official?
Well, as an elected official, my job is to make sure that I keep a finger on what's going on in the community and understand the challenges that are facing our county. But ultimately, my priority as a judge is to stay fair and impartial, and is to make sure that my cases are moving to resolution quickly and that people's rights are being protected. And that is the ultimate priority above everything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson?
Yes, thank you for the question. That was a very good question. I think that as an elected official, you have to carry yourself in a certain demeanor. You represent the county to which you serve. You represent the people. You serve at the luxury of the people. I've already been doing that as a prosecutor. I've already served the citizens of DeKalb County, and I hold myself to a higher standard. I will continue to do so upon election. Also, as an elected official, it is my duty to stay involved in my community, so I will be able to understand those who I serve. That's all. That talks about being involved in different organizations and just making sure that you are accessible and very transparent on the bench. As an independent judge, I will make rulings based off legal principles and not personal beliefs. But I also believe that camaraderie within the DeKalb bar is important and beneficial to DeKalb residents. So even though I operate independently and as an elected official, I would definitely like to make sure that I speak with all the judges on the state court bench and make sure that I am operating efficiently and effectively, and that we can work together for greater DeKalb.
Thank you very much. Ms. Anderson.
Unlike other elected positions like legislators, the CEO, et cetera, other people who are on the ballot at this time, judges, as you talked about in the entry, we're not able to really pontificate or answer questions about issues that could potentially come before us. So we have to constantly, remind the public of that when we're out at different places, that we can't talk about issues of the day. And I think I haven't gotten much pushback on that, so I haven't really had a problem maintaining that impartiality and that's required for the judgeship, with still being active in the community, still being front facing, still answering questions for people and explaining, how the justice system works for them. As a judge, it's going to be mandatory that I continue the service that I've had all this time, because you need to, it's that sort of interface that lets people know that the court is a safe place for them, that they can get fair and just results. So you have to still be in the public.
Excellent. Ms. Mack, how will you balance being an independent judge and an elected official?
Well, I believe I would do it just like I'm doing my job now. That's the kind of attorney I've been for the last 30 years. My entire career is in public service. I started as a public defender, then as a prosecutor, and now I'm a supervisor or / deputy. I see all things. I see everything from all sides because I've been on all sides. Some cases need to go to trial. If they go to trial, then I'm prepared to do that. I know that some need to be resolved and sometimes even dismissed. I've demonstrated that independence. To be from the community is important because people understand that you don't have to agree, but as long as you feel like you had a fair day in court and you understand them. And so that's the kind of judge that I would be.
Thank you, Mrs. very much. And finally, Ms. McGee.
Yes, thank you. Judges have to walk a fine line between being fair decision makers who follow the law and being accountable to the people who elected them to serve. As your state court judge, my judgments will always be based on the facts and the law without being influenced by external pressures. I understand the duty I will have to respond to the concerns of the communities that I serve. This is something I've done for years as a lawyer and community advocate. I have been accessible. Judges should remain accessible to the community in which they serve. A judge who consistently engages with the public through volunteer work and listens to your concerns will certainly earn your trust and increase the trust in our justice system. It is a tricky balance, of course, staying independent while also staying connected to the people who put you in office. But a judge who understands the dynamics and diversity of our communities will be more effective in administering justice for everyone.
Thank you very much. So going to question 4, we will start with Ms. Jackson. We'll have 60 seconds to answer the question. How will you handle conflicts of interest on the bench?
Cindy, I won't need 60 seconds to answer this question, but thank you. I think it's very simple. I will be a very transparent judge. Anytime a conflict of interest arises, all the litigants will be made aware of it. I will disclose the conflict to the parties and give them the opportunity to respond back to the court as to if this conflict poses an issue with either side. If either side or one side feels that there is a conflict that requires me to be removed from the case, I will happily do so. I think judges should be fair and impartial. And if there is any any sense of impartiality or bias being raised, I want to make sure that that is not the case. I will rule based on fear, without fear or favor, and make sure that all parties have the opportunity to be heard and make sound rulings based on legal principles.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. The Judicial Code of Conduct governs judicial behavior, and it's very clear that we must avoid even the appearance of impropriety. So that makes our behavior fairly simple in that we must disclose and then recuse if there's any conflict of interest, period.
Okay, Ms. Mack.
Yes, well, this is what I would say. Faith and trust in the judiciary is of the most importance. If there's a conflict, I would recuse myself. I would never stand in the way of someone believing that they did not have their fair day in court. If that is the case, I would recuse myself and allow the case to go to another one of my colleagues.
Excellent, thank you. Ms. McGee, how would you handle conflicts of interest on the bench?
Yes, as your state court judge, I will be transparent and always avoid the appearance of impropriety. A conflict of interest for a judge occurs when she has personal knowledge of the facts, a personal bias towards a party, a financial interest in a case, or has been previously involved in the case as a lawyer. If such conflict exists, I will recuse myself from the case. I will be a judge who will be transparent. I will always inform the attorneys and parties of any type of relationship or interaction I may have had with the party, whether a conflict exists or not. I have worked and served in this county for most of my life. As a lawyer, I've had cases where I may have known someone who has appeared as a juror, a witness, or a defendant. And I've always disclosed this information to the court, and the judge has acted accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Judge Martinez.
Can you all hear me better now? Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure. As I have been doing for the last 2.5 years, I will alert the parties when there is any sign of a conflict, and I will recuse myself from every case as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the next question, we will start with Ms. Anderson. Question number 5 is, what are the biggest changes you think we need to make to our justice system?
Justice can often be delayed and then therefore denied. So I am going to focus my answer particularly on what is in my purview to help and change here in DeKalb County. So I think the main thing, making sure that justice is neither delayed nor denied, is to be efficient, to be organized, to make sure that people can have their matters resolved timely and fairly. Some of the biases that people suspect happen in court often make them feel like that is a change that we need to make to the justice system, that they often feel prejudged before they get there. Sometimes they even feel that even if the outcome, if they're not even happy with the outcome, they weren't heard or seen, that can feel like a delay or a challenge to the justice system. So the main thing is to make sure that we are quickly and correctly ruling on their cases fairly.
Thank you. Ms. Mack.
Yes, thank you for the question. What I would tell you is I would focus on the backlog. I think that, when you have people in jail waiting, they're sitting in jail waiting for their cases to be heard. That's a problem. I think even when people are outside and they're on bond, although they're not in jail, those cases can hold up people's lives. It may make a difference in whether they can get a job or even what type of jobs they can get, even if there's a civil case and can affect someone being able to move on with their lives. So this is how I would do that. So I know that there'll be a backlog. So the question is, how do I plan to move through that? I don't know if you know, but with this particular division, once the person is elected, they would not take the bench until January. So there'll be about a 6-month time frame. I plan to get with the current judge, Judge Purdom, if he would allow it, to get the status and update on all of his cases, starting from oldest to the most recent. And I plan to, when I take the bench, to have a specially set calendar for the old cases. Obviously, you have to move the old cases, but you have to prevent the new cases from becoming old. So I will continue to work the new cases, but begin to calendar the old cases. I've already had experience doing that when I was recruited from the DeKalb DA's office. By the Fulton DA's office. When I arrived there were boxes and boxes of old cases that we had to work through. We had to figure out how to move those cases, but to then continue to maintain the new cases. And I've done that. I believe that people should not wait for years, whether they're in jail or out of jail, to have access to the justice system.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Next, Ms. McGee.
One of the biggest changes we need to make in our justice system is to ensure that everyone is treated fairly, regardless of their background, circumstances, or socioeconomic status. First, we need to ensure that everyone has adequate legal representation. We have an outstanding public defender's office, but if someone is employed but still on a fixed income, they likely won't qualify, yet and still don't have enough financial resources to afford a lawyer. Second, we need to address racial bias and inequality, both in how laws are enforced and in the outcome of cases. We can do this through implicit bias training. We all have implicit biases and prejudice that could negatively impact the work that we do. And third, we need to focus more on rehabilitation programs and alternatives to prison, especially for nonviolent offenders, so that we can get to the root causes of crime to reduce recidivism and close the revolving door to the criminal justice system.
Thank you. Judge Martinez, what are the biggest changes you think we need to make to our justice system?
I think one of the challenges that we face the most in state court is that we're dealing with lots of crimes of poverty. There are the people that are appearing before me are people who are misguided and uneducated and often committing crimes because they don't have resources. And I think providing resources, finding ways to educate and provide resources to those people will keep them out of the justice system. It would be phenomenal if we as a community can work together to better that. And courts like the DUI court that I run right now, those accountability courts are incredibly important because they change people's lives. Instead of sending people to jail, and we have a huge problem with the cost of the courts and the cost that it takes to go into the justice system, I think the accountability courts are a solution that helps the community as a whole.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson.
Yes, I think one of the biggest changes we need to make in our justice system, specifically DeKalb County, is that DeKalb County does not have a domestic violence accountability court. As Judge Martinez just stated, these accountability courts are necessary to the citizens of DeKalb County. And the fact that we currently do not have a domestic violence accountability court is troubling. Majority of the criminal cases that are heard in state court deals with some type of domestic violence. So upon election, will create a domestic violence accountability court where we will take a holistic approach to the issue of domestic violence so that I can prevent another 9-year-old from witnessing my tragedy. I also think that another change, very, very minor, but significant, effective time management. Judges work at the pleasure of the people, and it is important that we respect their time and understand that their time is just as valuable as ours. So that just means coming out on the bench on time, making sure we adhere to the court dates that we set for the people to come and have their cases heard. I think those two things, if we change, can impact our system in a much greater way, and the citizens will be able to have their day in court and resolve issues in the county.
Thank you very much. So we have 2 more pre-written questions. As a reminder, if you do have questions for our candidates, if you can put them in the chat, we can address those once we get through the next 2 questions. So we're going to start question 6. What reforms do you support to increase access to justice for all, and will you fight for them? So again, what reforms do you support to increase access to justice for all, and will you fight for them?
Okay, you froze. Did you say Mac?
Ms. Mack.
Okay, I'm sorry, you froze when you said
No
the
worries.
name. I apologize. Well, I think one of the biggest barriers to court is the cost. As a public defender, I understand when you're not fully staffed, how many cases the public defenders carry, and being able to give that attention to each and every case, the attention to detail that each case needs. So one of the reforms that I would support is increasing funding for the public defender's office, so that they can reduce their caseload and so they can give a little bit more focus on each client and be able to hire more public defenders to reduce costs.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGee.
As your state court judge, I will continue to do the work I have done as an attorney. I will work to ensure everyone has access to justice. Specifically, I will do this in 2 ways. First, I will advocate for implicit bias training for judges across the state. Despite their best intentions, judges, like everyone else, can be influenced by these biases. By undergoing this type of training, judges can gain the awareness and tools necessary to mitigate these biases, ensuring fair outcomes for everyone. Second, I will advocate for a veterans treatment program in the state court. This program will be designed to treat offenders who have substance abuse or mental health challenges who have served in the armed forces. While we have a veterans court and superior court, many of our veterans only commit misdemeanors, which is the jurisdiction of the state court. While we have a phenomenal DUI court program and a misdemeanor mental health court and magistrate court, we do not have a program in the state court that specifically focuses on our veterans. This is a great way to give back to those who have served our country.
Thank you. Judge Martinez.
I will echo what has been said. The cost of the court, the cost that it takes to run the courts and the courts that it takes to go through the process is staggering. And I think we need more funding for our public defender's office, and especially for mental health. We have huge mental health issues in our county. Many of our inmates are unfortunately suffering through mental health crises, and it is very difficult as a judge to manage the situation sometimes because there are not enough resources to help these people. And I would love to see more of that happening, and I love to see all of us working together to make more resources available in those situations.
Thank you. Ms. Jackson, what reforms do you support to increase access to justice for all, and will you fight for them?
Well, I already spoke on one, which was the creation of the Domestic Violence Accountability Court. I wholeheartedly support the reform aimed at ending the epidemic that we know as domestic violence. I also support reform aimed at increasing access to justice for all members of the community. Access to justice is the fundamental principle that ensures that every individual, regardless of their background or circumstance, has the opportunity to seek redress and receive fair treatment under the law. And I know a lot of times when we talk about access to justice, we speak on the Public Defender's Office, and that is a great organization that definitely needs funding. But I want to speak on the expansion of legal aid services and pro bono representation that ensures low-income individuals and marginalized communities have access to the legal assistance. I currently serve as a board of director for DeKalb Pro Bono, and as a board member, we have to do our part to raise capital to be able to supply the organization with funds to help our pro bono attorneys who provide legal services to those who cannot afford attorney in civil cases. So those individuals who may have a parent pass away and they have to go through probate court, but they can't afford a probate attorney. Let's make sure that they also have access to pro bono services as well and can get effective services in the legal field for their cases.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson.
Yes, my colleagues have identified, how great a remedy diversion and alternative courts can be, and I concur. But let's identify some of the other barriers to justice that are within our purview to change and affect. And some of those are financial constraints, people who can't afford a lawyer, language or communication barriers, bias, even sometimes the stigma of cooperating with the courts or law enforcement, and that can prevent people from feeling comfortable or be a barrier to justice. Sometimes the feeling that your outcome is predetermined before you even step foot into the courtroom, another barrier to justice. but let's talk about the things that we can prevent, and change on those topics. So a lot of it, again, as I keep, hammering away, can be done with foresight and with organization. So what I've been able to do by managing a large docket in the past is to look at the cases in advance and proactively make sure that we have interpreters if necessary for those who have a language issue, and that can be their barrier. Oh, I didn't get my 10 seconds. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Okay, for the final question, we're going to start with Ms. McGee. And the final question of the 7 initial questions, that is, how do you define injustice, and how do you deal with injustice when you confront it in your courtroom? Or how will you deal with injustice when you confront it in your courtroom? Ms. McGee, 60 seconds.
Yes, thank you. In the simplest of terms, injustice occurs when people aren't treated fairly in our justice system. This unfairness can happen for different reasons. It could be because someone is treated unfairly because of their race, gender, or how much money they have. It can also happen because of mistakes in the legal process, or people don't get the help they need to defend themselves. When I am elected your state court judge, I will confront injustices by making sure everyone is treated with dignity and respect. I will make sure that everyone is heard and understands what is happening in the court process. I will listen carefully to all sides, considering all the evidence, and make sure that my decisions are based on the law and facts in the case. If I notice any biases or unfairness, I will speak up and address it. The courthouse belongs to the people, and I will make sure that my courtroom is a fair and just place for everyone involved.
Thank you. Judge Martinez.
Injustice is the violation of people's rights. It is an unfair system. It is a system that does not allow people to have their day in court. And my commitment is to make sure that people who come before me continue to feel like they have been heard, like the system has treated them fairly, like they understand the process, and like they have had the opportunity to go through the process in a way that allows them to have their say. The law will not always provide everyone with the outcome that they want, but the most fair thing is to make sure that everyone feels like the process was fair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson.
Injustices can take many forms, but at its core, it is a violation of fundamental rights, fairness, and equity. It occurs when individuals are denied equal treatments under the law, when systematic biases pervade decision-making processes, or when the vulnerable members of society are marginalized or oppressed. I also want to tell you that another injustice is extensive criminal court cases that are outstanding. I am ready to roll up my sleeves and get to work because the number of cases pending in Division A6, the criminal cases, is kind of alarming. And it's the second highest number of criminal cases that's pending of all the judges in the state court bench. And when these cases are not being addressed in a timely manner, people are not able to get quality jobs, housing, and many other factors impact their livelihood and allow them to live a productive life. So that's also an injustice that we as judges have a duty to make sure we do our part to make sure these cases are moved in a timely manner so that the community can continue to live their lives and not be impacted by the failure of the criminal justice system to do its part and rule on these cases in a timely manner.
Thank you. Ms. Anderson, how do you define injustice, and how will you deal with injustice when you confront it in your courtroom?
Injustice can feel overwhelming, and like we can't really attack it. It's bigger than us, it's pervasive, it's bigger than DeKalb. And so I like to focus on some of the injustices within the day-to-day processes of the court. And most of those have to do with delay. I would definitely have standing orders, and I would enforce my standing orders. And for those of us who are not attorneys, practicing attorneys that are watching, a standing order means it is a way that the judge expects the attorneys and litigants to proceed. It's with deadlines, expectations. Also, there are very specific rules and regulations the judge can lay out in terms of conduct, between the parties, not only would I have these standing orders in place, I would enforce them. And that way we can feel like injustice is not some amorphous, big boogeyman that we can't handle. We can actually make some practical changes in the courtroom.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Mack.
Thank you. Well, I define injustice by people who don't have adequate representation. I think as being a public defender, a prosecutor, and now a supervisor, in those three major roles, I realize justice sometimes can be impaired by your representation. And that's whether it's a civil case or criminal case, people deserve to have adequate representation. Cost of court goes up more and more the more you have to go to court. So I would do everything I could to be efficient on pretrial motions, running an efficient calendar, bringing parties together to resolve cases without going to court. All of these things reduce court costs and removes the barriers for the cost of court. I would see if we could resolve these cases without having them being drawn out and being in court. As a supervisor, I do that now. I spend most of my days speaking with attorneys, trying to figure out how they can resolve their case without constantly having several court dates back to back to back. And so many times we can do that, and when we can't, be prepared to try the cases.
Okay. I moved my names around, but I think that's everybody's answered that question, correct? Okay, so questions from the audience. So the first question from the audience is, how would you eliminate the appearance of justice favoring someone as to their status, appearing that they are not treated the same as others, such as they are above the law, and judgment favors them because of who they are? I'll repeat that again. How would you eliminate the appearance of justice favoring someone as to their status, appearing that they are not treated the same as others, such as are they above the law and judgment favors them because of who they are? We'll start with Judge Martinez, 60 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. The main thing that we need to make sure is that people know what the process looks like so that they can take full advantage of the entire process and they can understand what the process is. The appearance of this question is a little tricky, but everybody has a right to be heard in court. And the way that I deal with this is by treating everyone with respect, is by making sure that everyone understands the process, and it is by making sure that everyone has an opportunity to have their say in court. In my division, there is no room for sympathy or the things that are not appropriate when making decisions. Everyone is treated the same. And that is how you deal with that appearance of impropriety or injustice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
No one is above the law. So therefore, because of your status or economic status, or you may have more advantages than another person, or you may not come from a marginalized part of the county, you will be held to the same standard as any other person that enters my courtroom. I will address every accusation, every petition filed. I will rule without fear or favor, without bias or improprieties, because everyone in my community matters to me. I don't care what your financial background looks like. What I care is about ruling on the facts that have been presented to me based off legal principles and not personal beliefs. So because you have more than maybe the average person doesn't mean you get a break in the criminal justice system or the legal system for that matter, whether it be civil or criminal. You will be judged based off the legal principles, which will come from your case.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
I remember being a baby lawyer, going to court by myself, not with the partners at that time or any supervisors. This is on your own, and you're with opposing counsel and they have a huge team and they look fancy and they know the judge. And so there's banter there. And that certainly felt like, am I even gonna, as a officer of the court, am I even going to be able to have a fair time representing my client? And I remember that feeling. I know what that feels like. I'll never forget it. I think that it is mandatory that I conduct a courtroom that is so fair and unbiased that the litigants will feel that scales are balanced, right? So I may know an attorney, we may have banter, but I'm still going to make sure that I go the extra mile to make everybody in the courtroom feel that they are being heard. Oftentimes, even when the result is a fair result, if people are not heard, they don't feel so. They don't feel that way. So it's mandatory on us to create an environment in the courtroom that equals the playing field.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Ms. Mack?
Yes, thank you for that question. I will tell you, I will do it the same way as I do right now. I was a public defender, so I know what it's like to be in court with a person who can't afford to pay their own lawyer and feel like someone else who has a paid attorney, as they would call it, or someone else who is high profile or who has money, being treated differently or fairly. It's amazing how, that affects really the spirit, of the person that's been charged. And we always have to remember, those people are charged. They have not been convicted, and everybody wants their fair day in court. As the deputy in the largest jurisdiction here in Georgia, I have had high profile defendants. I was assigned to the homicide and high profile unit where I received attorney of the year. So I can tell you they are treated no differently. I prosecuted their cases the same as I would as someone who who had a public defender. So much so, Vernon Pitts, who was the public defender for many, many years in Fulton County and who is a resident of DeKalb County, has endorsed me. So as a judge, I don't see me doing anything any different from what I've been doing every day.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. That's the end of your time. Ms. McGee?
Yes, thank you for the question. And it's very simple. And like I stated earlier, everyone should be treated fairly, regardless of their background, circumstances, or socioeconomic status. So whether somebody is wealthy, whether someone is unemployed, it doesn't matter. I remember as a young prosecutor having cases, one in particular involving a professional athlete who was represented by one of our criminal defense attorneys who's well known and very good at what he does, and who in many moments during that case was trying to garner some type of favor because of his client's position in society. And I had to let him know that my job as a prosecutor was to treat everyone the same, just like my job as a judge would be to treat everyone the same with dignity and respect, and not really being concerned about how much money they do and do not make. Everyone deserves to be heard, and everyone deserves to be treated fairly.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. The next question from our audience. Can minors with infractions be assigned to mandatory community service to help those less fortunate, to help them understand how they can learn to have a positive impact? So can minors with infractions be assigned to mandatory community service to help those less fortunate to understand how they can learn to have a positive impact? We'll start with Ms. Jackson.
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, state court judges do not deal with juvenile cases on a misdemeanor level. Juvenile court will handle those cases. So unfortunately, I will not be able to sentence any juvenile to any type of community service, as they will not come before me. So unfortunately, while we would like to do great things for our juvenile to make sure that they are not repeat offenders or subjected to the criminal justice system, that's outside the purview of my position.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
But the question's still a good one, even if, as it pertains to any other litigant or defendant who would come before the court. And I've had a tremendous amount of success prosecuting misdemeanor cases using community service. And really, as a prosecutor and even more as a judge, you have a tremendous amount of discretion in how you want to handle and resolve some of these cases. A lot of times, the remedy that we can give can really go to the heart of what the actual issue is, right? So if, for example, the charge arose of a one-time issue of a person having a tremendous amount of stress in their life, maybe they lost a job, maybe there is an education deficiency, maybe there is some mental health issues, we can put some requirements in place to address some of those issues, like community service, counseling, require you to complete your GED, for example. There's a lot of discretion that judges have to really address the heart of the matter, and also issue community service so we can, take care of our community.
Thank you. Ms. Mack.
Yes, thank you. As Ms. Jackson indicated, juvenile cases do not come before the state court. Now, in certain situations, they can be in superior court, but this position is in state court, and so the cases would not come to state court. I have practiced in juvenile court, and so I do have a working knowledge of what happens in juvenile. And I can tell you that with juvenile cases as well as adult cases, you can be sentenced to some type of mandatory community service. That is something that is within the discretion of the judge. Every case, you have to weigh each case differently. You have to listen to the cases and see what you think each case needs. And if there's a situation that you believe is beneficial to the person that's in front of you, whether it's a juvenile or an adult, a judge can use his or her discretion to order some type of community service.
Hey, thank you, Ms. McGee.
Yes, thank you. That's a really, really good question. In the eyes of the law, a person becomes an adult in the criminal justice system the day before their 17th birthday. So while our minors who have committed crimes are adjudicated in juvenile court, our 17-year-olds and older who are not considered minors, but young people still and have a lot of maturing and growing up to do, those cases are handled in the state court if they're misdemeanor cases. And the state court is the court in which we can really do the most work to close the revolving door to the criminal justice system for our young people. Once they commit felonies, it becomes a little bit more difficult to do that. And so why not, if I'm judge, use my discretion and sentence someone to community service so that they can understand that, take responsibility for the crime that they committed, but also do good work in the community to make the lives and communities in DeKalb County better.
Thank you. Judge Martinez.
Yeah, I will echo what everyone has been saying. We don't deal with juveniles, but we do deal with young people. And community service is one of the great tools that we have in our arsenal, and we use it on a regular basis in misdemeanor court to allow people to get a better understanding of how their actions have impacted the community. And also for individuals with economic barriers, they can work out fines and fees, and they can do so in a way that helps them understand the community and understand how they can become productive members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. For our next question from the audience, we will start with Ms. Anderson. The question is, how will you implement restorative justice?
Well, restorative justice, I think we can all maybe have our own definition of that. I've kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, and I believe it's really a great idea to personalize sentences, to actually attack at the core of whatever the problem is, right? So if the charge has arisen from alcohol abuse, then we can implement restorative justice by having AA classes or, some type of class addressing alcohol. if the person just is a bad driver, you can have restorative justice by getting them some basic driving classes. And so regardless of what the issue is, that is how I think we are restoring it. And then again, that's from the perspective of the defendant though, right? Because we also need to restore the victim or the community who's also been impacted by whatever charge that's happened there. And so the sentence for the defendant and the adjudication of that case needs to also be restorative to everybody who's impacted by that charge.
Thank you, Ms. Mack.
Yes. So what I can tell you is from practicing for so many years in Superior Court, it's a little more difficult there to deal with restorative justice. You can, but now you're dealing with your higher level offenders, your more violent crimes. What I can tell you that is in state court is the place where you can really do the most good, where you can really sink your teeth in and figure out what else can we do besides sending the person to jail. I think that DeKalb has done a great job with their accountability courts. I would continue that. Any type of diversion programs when it's warranted. I think with restorative justice, there are two parties, right? And so there is the victim, and there is the accused. And I think a lot of times the best thing to do is to make sure you have buy-in from both sides. It's important to ask the victims. I move cases every day, as a deputy. But before I do that, the main question I have to ask the victims is, how do they feel about it? What would they like to see happen? And then I have to balance that on what is fair and just as the person that's standing on the other side. And so I think restorative justice can be done a lot in state court because you usually have your first-time offenders, lower level offenders, and you can get sometimes to the root of the problem.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Ms. McGee.
Yes, thank you for the question. As it has already been stated, restorative justice involves the impact to the victim as well as the accountability of the person who has committed the crime. And so it's twofold. The state court is the court where we can, again, do the most work to help the people who come in that court, our defendants as well as our victims. And so accountability programs, rehabilitation programs to address the issue that has caused that person to commit the crime is one part of it. But the other part of it is to make sure that the victim is involved in those conversations so that the victim understands that this person is being held accountable and that their needs have been heard. This can be done through victim impact panels, for example, where a defendant sits in front of maybe not the victim that he or she has committed a crime against, but other people who have had that particular crime perpetrated against them. A good option as well is community service and actually doing community service in the neighborhood where the crime was actually committed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. Judge Martinez.
I am very happy to say that DeKalb County already has a great buy-in for the concept of restorative justice. There are many pre-conviction programs that are already available and that require victim consent. So this is a program that already takes into account the victim's rights and the victim's ability to feel like they were heard while allowing the offenders to get rehabilitation or to make amends in ways that don't involve jail. I am also very much involved in restorative justice through my involvement in the DUI court program. The DUI court program works to rehabilitate individuals who have addiction issues, to get them to a place where they can become productive members of society and to make our community safer.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you for the question. My colleagues really did touch on this issue. Restorative justice is definitely important and it's things that we should consider. As an assistant solicitor general for 3 years, I know exactly of the diversion programs that the solicitor general office offer. I was steadfast in making sure I recommended cases where I felt that they should go to those diversion programs. And we definitely speak to the victims in those cases to make sure that to get their input. But also I want to talk about another great thing that I have been endorsed by the North Georgia Labor Council. And one of the things that one of the things, one of that benefit to me is actually this is something we were speaking of, that I can use them as well once elected as a state court judge. You see, the North Georgia Labor Council has over 2,000 of individuals in various roles. We can use community service to have offenders go to those different job sites and ultimately become apprentice, and now they can have a job and have a good livelihood because they've learned a new skill or trade through the community service hours that they were sentenced to in court, and now they're able to be good citizens with able to pay their bills. So
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Mack. 60 seconds on how would you deal with a matter that you decided and later felt that you had made a mistake?
Mistakes. I would never make a mistake. No, what I would say is, I mean, I would hope that with every case that comes before me, that I'm prepared, that I've researched, that I've listened to both sides, and I've made the decision based on the law and the facts before me, the best decision that I felt was fair and just at the time. If for whatever reason, you know, I look back at it and maybe the sentence is an illegal sentence. Maybe, look, I got it wrong just one time. Then of course I would never have a problem with coming back and saying, you know what, bringing the parties in and saying, hey, I got it wrong, or this sentence was improper, or it was illegal, or it was incorrect. I mean, no one is above or past mistakes. We all make them. You know, the reality is you have to just be the type of person who says, oh, I made a mistake. Let's fix it. So I would never have a problem with doing that. I do that now. The work that I'm doing, I may talk to a defense attorney about a case and I have a position on it. But I tell them every single time, I'm like, but that could change, you know, based on the facts and circumstances. So I would never have a problem with coming back if I've made a mistake and I'm correcting it.
Thank you, Ms. Mack. Ms. McGee.
Listen, lawyers never have a problem telling a judge when they think that the judge has made a mistake, which is why we have courts of appeal throughout our country. But seriously, you know, my answer to this question just goes back to my judicial philosophy, and that is to always interpret the law and apply the law to the facts of the case in a fair and impartial manner. And so after making a decision, if I think I've made a mistake, of course, I will call the parties in, call the lawyers in, amend my decision, and move forth accordingly, because, you know, no one is perfect. Judges do make mistakes from time to time, but it is always important to do the work, to always seek the truth, and to always seek justice.
Thank you. Judge Martinez.
No, we're humans and humans make mistakes. I strive to make the best decisions by surrounding myself with knowledgeable people. My staff attorney is a phenomenal individual, and we make a great team. We discuss cases before making decisions, and we are very discerning when making those decisions. That being said, I'm not afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to ask questions of the attorneys that come before me so that I can be educated to the best of my ability before making a decision. And I'm not afraid to say I've made a mistake. I'm not afraid to read motions for reconsideration and to reevaluate the decisions that I've made that perhaps I wasn't, you know, I had some hesitations on. We are going to make mistakes, and we are very fortunate to be in a legal system that allows our decisions to be reviewed. And I am, you know, I think that being humble is one of the most important things that you can have from a judge.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
As a prosecutor, my role is to always operate in the interest of justice. That is the legal objective that we strive to abide by every day. I will try my best to be thoroughly researched in the case that comes before me and make sure that I do the work as a judge to make rulings that are fair and impartial, to make rulings or make sentences that I feel, you know, value, or look at the crime that's been committed and the damages that have been incurred. However, as everyone has said, I'm human. I'm not above the law, and I'm not above to anyone telling me that I made a mistake. I think that's the ability of being respected and respectful that allows individuals to tell you when you should change your position. I'm definitely open to that. I would just make sure that even when changing position, it still falls in line with legal principles and it's not made on my personal beliefs or the personal beliefs of anyone else. If it is the right thing to do, if it's in the interest of justice, Tyshawn will make that decision.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Ms. Anderson.
I like this question because it's so relatable. Who doesn't understand this? Who hasn't felt that, right? I'm sure as soon as we log off today, I'm going to feel like, did I make a mistake? Did I not answer something properly or give you guys all the information that you needed to, feel confident about me and vote for me? So who doesn't understand this question? I like it also because it reminds us of the severity and seriousness of this role when you have someone's life, property, future, money, criminal record in your hands. So it is sobering because what we do has a tremendous impact on, or what we will do in this role has a tremendous impact on people's daily lives. So first and foremost, I'll have more than 60 seconds to rule, right? More than the time we have here to answer a question. So I'll make sure that you make good use of that time, and you have to balance time with also getting it right. Or, you can't go too long. So the main thing is about preparation, but certainly you're going to hope for that motion for reconsideration. And if you have that nagging feeling that something is just not right, I think it's mandatory that you contact the parties. Can't talk to one of them, must talk to both of them at the same time.
Excellent, thank you. We have one more question. We may have time for another one if anybody has one they want to put in the chat. So the last question I have right now, we'll start with Ms. McGee. The state mental health court was mentioned earlier. How will you deal with people suffering with mental illness who either have civil complaints or criminal charges pending before you? Ms. McGee.
That is a very good question. And those of us who have been practicing for a little while or for a long while know that we have a mental health crisis, specifically as it relates to our criminal justice system. The Misdemeanor Mental Health Court and Magistrate Court is a good resource for those who have been diagnosed with a mental health challenge. But those who have not been diagnosed with a mental health challenge, there is a gap in our court system. And so as your state court judge, I will ensure that I will work with the attorneys that are assigned to the case, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case, to make sure that that particular person, whether they are a litigant in a civil matter or a criminal defendant, is getting the access to mental health services that they need. It is a complicated system, but it's a system that I know that I will work hard to make sure that everyone gets the services that they need.
Thank you, Judge Martinez.
There's a real mental health crisis in our country, in our state, in our county. And every time I have an issue regarding an individual with a mental health issue, I make sure that they are properly represented. Those individuals are not in a position to represent themselves, and I make sure that they have the representation that they need and they have someone speaking up on their behalf. Unfortunately, we don't have enough resources in DeKalb County, and that's something that I've been working on. I've been trying to get more support to see what changes can be made to make sure that the people in our jails are getting the mental health treatment that they need and the mental health assistance that they require in order to go through the court system. It's a really tough subject, and hopefully we'll continue to have the conversation.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jackson?
There is an epidemic of dealing with mental health that is real. Everyone has touched on, has stated it. But it's our job and our duty as judges to still make sure that their rights have not been violated. One of these first things, Ms. McGee touched on that a lot of times our mental health court only deals with those that have been diagnosed, but all too often, a lot of individuals in our community have not been diagnosed. So what do we do with them? because they can't get into the mental health court. I think first we need to make sure that a competency evaluation has been completed, so that way the courts can also make sure that those individuals that may be exhibiting mental health crisis can actually be competent for their own case and assist their attorneys who are helping them in their legal matters. Also, let's think about the resources that we do have in DeKalb County that could potentially be resourceful to the state courts. We have the Community Service Board that definitely deals with a lot of our mental health issues. I urge all the state court judges to make sure that they are a partner with the state court judges to make sure that we could use that to our advantage and get the help that our mental health individuals are suffering.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
So just as one of the reasons why I love the state court so much is because it is where real life shows up in court, right? So as we're driving down the streets of DeKalb County, we see evidence and instances of mental health crisis all over our streets, and they do show up in our courthouses. I have handled a ton of cases where you can tell that the party, whether they're diagnosed or not, has mental health challenges. A lot of times the charges that they're arrested for are a direct relation to, you know, them not taking their medication or not having, medical treatment to help themselves. And our society is not equipped to handle them. Where do they go? They get arrested and then they come before the state court. So I don't want to pretend that the state court has some catch-all, win for this issue. Each case has to be handled on a case-by-case basis. I agree with Judge Martinez that they must be represented. And, oftentimes what I've found successful when you can is to engage the family and other support systems and resources. But there is no one-size-fits-all answer to this. Each case has to be handled on its own.
Thank you so much. Ms. Mack.
Yes, thank you. I can tell you that being a public defender, I have represented people who have had mental health issues, and being a prosecutor, I have prosecuted cases. I currently have cases right now where there is a concern about mental health. So what I can tell you is what the first thing that the court system would do, if there's any question, because obviously someone has to understand the process, they have to understand their charges. And if there's any question of that, either if it's raised by the public defender or the prosecutor, then a competency evaluation is done. If the person is deemed to be competent, because just because they're competent doesn't mean they don't have any mental health issues, then there's a question of criminal responsibility. And then there's an evaluation that lets us know whether that person was operating under some type of delusion, or whether they understood what was happening at the time. If you get past both of those, because obviously we lean on the doctors, right? If the doctors say, no, they have these issues, this is what we need. Almost always we follow the doctor's recommendation because we don't know. We're lawyers, we're not doctors. I think everyone has kind of touched on the fact that resources are limited. But I think in the court system, we do our best. As far as the families being interviewed, the families are always interviewed when they have their mental health evaluations, because that's how you get background on people, right? And understanding, from whence they came. But I can tell you, I think that anytime there's an opportunity to offer resources, certain resources are available for, depends on the crime. Certain resources are not available for someone who has violent crimes. So as everyone has said, it is not a one size fits all. And I think that we all kind of do our best when we see that there are mental health issues to see if we can deal with those mental health issues so that we can deal with the cases.
Okay, thank you very much. So that is the end of the questions, and we will now begin our closing statements. Judge Martinez, you have 90 seconds for your closing statement.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you all today. I am very proud of the work that I have done in the division for the last 10 plus years, and especially the last 2.5 years as a judge. I consistently run the most efficient civil docket of all 7 divisions, and we are making tremendous strides on our civil docket. Unfortunately, we have had to deal with the backlogs from COVID, from the courthouse being closed for 4 months because of flooding, and because of not having a judge in this division for close to 6 months before I took over. But we are making tremendous strides. And we're working together as a team with every stakeholder, with the prosecution, with the public defenders, with the clerk's office to make sure that cases are moving. The DUI court is changing lives. I love my role as a DUI court judge. I not only I not only hold a court in English, but I have the only Spanish-speaking DUI court in the entire state. And I am very proud to meet people where they are and to help people in the way that helps them best. The DUI court makes the community safer. It is helping people beat addiction. And is helping them become more productive members of society. My commitment to equal access to justice, to respect for all individuals that come before the court, and to being fair and impartial has been unwavering since I took office. And I commit to nothing less going forward. And I hope I can count with your support and your vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Jackson, 90 seconds for your closing statement.
Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for putting on this very important forum, and it gives the DeKalb citizens an opportunity to make informed decisions on May 20th, 2024. Again, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tyshawn Jackson. I would love to have your support by way of your vote on May 21st, 2024. I am qualified to serve in this position. I feel the one thing that sets me apart from my opponent is my extensive litigation experience. I have served as a prosecutor for over 11 years, and I've navigated the intricacies of jury trials, showcasing diligence and expertise. Having conducted over 60 jury trials and more than 1,000 bench trials, I've gained extensive familiarity with courtroom procedures and the application of legal principles. This invaluable skill set has been honed through practical experiences, proven to be essential as I pursue the role of the judiciary. I'm rooted in the community. I've served in various positions, from National Council of Negro Women DeKalb Section, NAACP DeKalb Branch, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Junior League of DeKalb County, as well as mock trial coach for Decatur High School. You see, I am ready to serve. I know the community who I will be presiding over, and they will know me as well. I also have the passion to make sure that we end epidemic of domestic violence, and I'm determined to not let another 9-year-old child witness my tragedy. So I ask for your support. I ask for your support by way of your vote, and I want you to vote Tyshawn Jackson as your next state court judge in Division A6. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Ms. Anderson, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, and thank you again for putting on this forum tonight. I am running to be a DeKalb State Court judge because I'm following the call that's on my life. I come from a family where service is required. And the way that in my family that we've chosen to do that usually is through our profession. And so I've used the law to serve my community and to practice law, of course, and to get good results from my clients for all the years I've been practicing. I remember as a baby lawyer kind of seeing things happen in court that I would do differently, or seeing things happen that I would love to emulate, and knowing, kind of putting in the back of my mind that I would probably pursue this at some point. But it was around the time of the pandemic that it came time to make this switch. And so I left civil law to go and practice criminal misdemeanor law so that I could confidently come before you today and ask for your vote as being the only qualified person to handle the exact kind of cases that come before this court. I believe that it is that particular specific experience that shows respect for our community and respect for the law. My service, like I said, goes back since before law school, right? I have been active with the Georgia Association of Black Women Attorneys. I've mentored hundreds of young attorneys over the years. I have received the Commitment to Equality Award from the State Bar of Georgia. I teach professionalism. I serve on the committee for professionalism. I encourage you to please go to www.meccaforjudge.com to find out about me and my platform. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Mack.
Yes, and as all the others have stated, thank you so much. for putting on this forum. I really have enjoyed letting the citizens of DeKalb County know what I'm all about. I will tell you that I'm from DeKalb for DeKalb. I grew up right here in DeKalb County, a graduate of Avondale High School. I tell people it's the first DeKalb Center of the Performing Arts, before the new DeKalb Center of the Performing Arts. I am a public servant. I've served on both sides as a public defender, and as a prosecutor. I have almost 30 years of experience, of trial experience. I've handled thousands of cases and tried over 100 cases. I'm the only candidate that is in a leadership role. So the last 8 years of my career, I've been the deputy of the sexual assault unit in the Fulton DA's office and the deputy of domestic violence in the DeKalb DA's office. I've received Attorney of the Year twice while prosecuting crimes against women and children and high profile and vehicular homicide and homicide cases, and received Unit of the Year while I was the deputy of the domestic violence and sexual assault cases in the DeKalb DA's office. Thirdly, I am rooted in the community. Not only am I from DeKalb, I'm involved in DeKalb. I'm a member of Leadership DeKalb, class of 2021, the best class ever. I'm an active member of Junior League DeKalb. I'm on the board of the International Women's House, which is a domestic violence shelter that services families in DeKalb County, the National Council of Negro Women, and I can go on, but I only have 90 seconds. But I will tell you, I am happy to have the endorsement of the community leaders that are in DeKalb County, Sheriff Maddox, the sheriff in DeKalb County, Ambassador Andy Young, Representative Billy Mitchell, and we are rolling out several more endorsements of weeks to come. I look forward to you learning more about me as we enter this election on May 21st. My name is Yolanda Mack. You can read more about me at yolandaforjudge.com on all social media platforms and my website. Thank you,
Ms. Mack. Okay, and finally, Ms. McGee, your closing statement.
Thank you so much. My legal career and my community work are a reflection of my heart for the well-being of people. I have lived my entire life in DeKalb, but more importantly, I am a servant leader with a demonstrated commitment to giving back to my community. Whether it has been as a legislative advocate for the DeKalb County Council of PTAs, serving as a pro bono attorney representing our young people in student tribunal hearings, serving as a 30-year member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, serving as a past president of the DeKalb Lawyers Association, providing a safe space to educate parents on how to navigate the school system for their special needs child, or serving our unhoused population with my 2 daughters of DeKalb. I am ready to do the work as your next state court judge because I've already done the work for those who call DeKalb County home. I have served our county as both a prosecutor and as a defense attorney in all 11 divisions of the state court. I have led the Special Victims Unit for 4 years, fighting for our survivors of domestic violence in the state court. I have managed a law practice in DeKalb County, advocating for individuals during the worst of times, suffering a personal injury, facing criminal charges, or going through a divorce. So I am a candidate who has both criminal and civil experience. My service to DeKalb County is a lifelong commitment built on 3 generations in my family. I hope today that you have learned that I have the professional and life experience to serve as your state court judge. I will do it with wisdom, honor, and pride. I am Dion McGee, a daughter of DeKalb with a legacy of service. Thank you so much for listening, DeKalb Democrats, and I hope that I've earned your support and your vote.
Thank you. Well, I certainly am impressed with the range of experience and background and service and everything from our candidates. And thank you so much for being here and for your thoughtful answers. At this time, I will pass it back to our chair, Brandy White. Or Steve.
And Brandy had to leave, so I'll cover for Brandy, our chair. Thank you, Cindy. A great job in moderating tonight, and thank you for all the candidates who joined us. All of you seem incredibly qualified to become a state court judge. I was really touched by the high level of respect that you all say you will bring to the bench. That means a lot. I also find it very interesting to learn about how you feel about changes that could make the criminal justice system better, especially in the areas of mental health, domestic violence, and legal assistance. So it was very insightful. Thank you all so much. I would like to thank the behind the scenes folks tonight, our volunteers, in addition to moderator Cindy Wilski, our technical crew, Paula Anderson, Gareth, Dr. Bola, and Karen Davenport for her research and writing these questions for us, the special events subcommittee for planning these forums. We're all volunteers and collaborate very closely with one another to produce programs like this. Our next virtual forum will be next Tuesday, April 23rd, and will feature candidates for DeKalb County School Board of Election, District 3 and 5 school board seats. Please also save the date for our CEO forum on Wednesday, May 1st at 6. All of these will be virtual forums. We are planning a forum for District 3 and Super District 7 in November. That election is delayed. And individual House District chairs in DeKalb County will be hosting various meet and greets with candidates in the May election for House representatives and senators. It's very important to vote. If you visit DeKalbDems.com, you'll land on a Make a Plan to Vote page. Please follow that through and make a plan. Everybody should vote. You'll see a full list of candidates, and you'll also gain access to recordings of all our forums. So if anyone has missed tonight or the other ones or upcoming ones, they can see what the candidates have to say about important issues facing DeKalb County citizens. The best information that you can find regarding voting is at DeKalbDems.com. So please share that information with your network. And remember that May 10th is the last day to submit an absentee application for the May 21st general primary nonpartisan election, and that early voting begins on April 29th. A very easy way to support our work is to participate and attend our Blue Ballot reception, where we'll be honoring and presenting our annual Leadership Legacy Award to Senator Gloria Butler and CEO Michael Thurman. It's our Blue Ballot reception on Saturday, June 22nd at the Emory Conference Center Hotel. We'll be announcing a very special guest soon, so stay on the lookout and grab those tickets while you can. It'll be a fun evening. Proceeds go to support our Get Out the Vote efforts, printing, signs, voter outreach programs, forums like this, engaging with diverse communities at events like Tucker Juneteenth, Atlanta Pride Marketplace, and more. You can learn more about the Blue Ballot reception tickets and sponsorship opportunities and other upcoming events, including more May 21st candidate election forums and benefits of becoming a member at DeKalbDems.com. Thanks again to everyone for being here tonight. We look forward to seeing you at other forums and events. We wish you candidates the very best of luck with your campaign. And remember, right here in DeKalb County, Georgia wins.